Bruce DelValle, he's a U.S. constitutional lawyer and joins us from Annapolis, Maryland. Thank you, sir, for sharing your expertise with us. Firstly, many people say the charges laid against Derek Chauvin are insufficient. In your view, do they fit the crime?
I'm not sure they fit the crime. I am sure, however, that this shows a good deal of discretion and forethought. I think they took far too long to charge the police officers, to charge Mr. Chauvin for this act, which can only be seen as an act of despicable violence, perhaps even murder. But the problem historically with these kind of situations has been overcharging. And the prosecutor does not want to overcharge him and make it difficult for a jury to convict him. If he's charged with manslaughter, or if he's charged with second or third degree murder, it will be much easier for a jury to convict him because the crime is somewhat reduced and the standards are lower. Murder is the highest standard of any crime. You have to show malice aforethought. You have to show that the acts were motivated by a predetermination, not only of hatred, not only of harm, but to kill Mr. Floyd. I think that that's a difficult case, and I think that it is very wise to charge as they have charged.
Well, how do you gather they would have determined that? How would they say that he intended to harm Mr. Floyd but not kill him? Would that have happened through an interview with the officer?
Well, that's the point. You don't have to get into a mindset. You don't have to prove his state of mind before he committed this crime. If he's charged with manslaughter, it's simply acts that lead to death. His actions caused the death. Whether he intended to cause the death, whether he wanted to cause the death, whether that was his motivation, those don't come into the equation. What you show is that he acted irresponsibly or negligently, knew or should have known that he would cause the death of Mr. Floyd. Now, do I personally think that he murdered Mr. Floyd? I think it appears as though Mr. Floyd was in the car. Mr. Floyd was beaten while he was in the car. There was I think surveillance video came out today. It appears as though they drug him out of the car after securing him, handcuffing him, and having him in the car. The crisis point was over. Mr. Floyd's ability to harm anyone was over. And yet Mr. Chauvin and his cohort still saw fit to drag him out of the car and then kneel upon him in that horrible and despicable act that led to Mr. Floyd's death. But the answer again to your question, I think that it doesn't show that anyone believes that this was not a horrible crime. I don't think it shows any condemnation or anyone saying it's okay for police officers in Minnesota or anywhere to act this way. I think it shows discretion and a measured quantity of looking at the history of these cases and seeing how hard they are to convict police officers. It is very difficult to convict police officers in these sort of situations. We've seen a lot of riots that arise because police officers are not convicted. In this case, I think it is proper to charge this way and secure the conviction because that's what's important. We need to start, justice has to start somewhere. And unfortunately, in this case, justice has to start with Mr. Chauvin. And we need social justice to start healing this nation.
So then what are your thoughts on possible charges on the other officers? Obviously, we've been seeing the protests over the past week. They are demanding that everyone involved in George Floyd's killing be charged with something. What is your estimation of what the other officers could be charged for, if at all?
I think there's no question we're going to see at minimum aiding and abetting. Standing by, not stopping. It's a police officer's duty, obligation. It's his job or her job to stop crimes being committed. And at the point where Mr. Floyd was dragged out of the car and was subjugated and thrown onto the ground and his throat and neck was kneeled upon, that was a crime. I think you and I watching that can see that as a crime. So I expect that they will also be charged in the upcoming days. I don't see how they escape any culpability for these acts. I think they had an obligation and a duty to stop it. They didn't. They apparently didn't even try. I think one of the officers, don't know this, but it's been reported, he said, hey, look, you need to stop, you need to stop, you need to stop. At some point in time, you would expect and hope for more. So I expect they will be charged.
All right, Mr. Bruce DelValle, we appreciate you taking time to speak with us here on TR2 World. Thank you.